Donald Trump has blown up decades of American foreign policy, not with tanks, you guys, not with troops, but with leverage. That is what is happening as we speak, because today he put Canada and he put Mexico on notice. Guess what? It's over. Okay? We're not going to be okay with a system that rewards you and not us. A major, major development, and one that should give everyone over in NATO right now a little bit of pause. Of course, he telegraphed it, just like he's been telegraphing a break with NATO if necessary. He telegraphed it. In fact, we can go back a couple of weeks ago. He told them it's going to be over, guys.
Well, I'm not looking to renew it. I don't, I made the deal. And the primary reason I made the deal is that NAFTA was the worst trade deal I've ever seen. Yeah. And I made it better, but I had the right to terminate. And, with NAFTA, we didn't have the right to terminate. I had to get these senators to approve that deal. That was a tough thing, congressmen too. NAFTA had no termination. So, I've never said this before, but I'll tell you what my thinking was. NAFTA was a disaster for our country. The worst trade deal ever made, by far. They had typos in, okay? And they were supposed to correct them. And they never corrected them when they were signed. They knew there were typos. And there's a process for that. You state your claim and, you get a change. They had typos on percentages. Or maybe somebody wrote, and that was for years. They never ran, they had horrible, all against us. So it probably wasn't typos. NAFTA was the worst trade deal we ever had. USMCA did one thing that I loved. After 6 years, it comes up for renewal. I don't know that I'm going to renew it because, to be honest with you, the United States does much better. Hey, we don't need anything that Canada has. We don't need anything that Mexico has, but they need everything that we have.
Ba-dum-bum.
And they have to treat us better. With Mexico and Canada, we have trade deficits. We should have surpluses with them. We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything that they have. So the primary thing that I got, it was a much better deal than NAFTA. Much, much better. It was sort of a good deal. But it was a great deal for one reason. It gave the right to terminate. And who would have thought that I was, they just didn't want to have it during the 4-year period when I was president.
Bottom line, Canada, Mexico, you got to renegotiate all over again. NATO, you better pay up. Because here's the deal. If you want America's protection, if you want America's market, then you know what? You're going to have to earn it. You think about it, guys. There's a pattern we're looking at here from NATO to UCMA to USMCA, tariffs, even negotiations with China, right? They're kind of all variations, if you would, of the same doctrine. Trump is not trying to preserve the post-World War II international order. Rather, he's trying to renegotiate it. The old system would say, how do we strengthen alliances? And Donald Trump is saying, what do we get in return? Right? Now, whether you agree with him or not, I happen to agree with him, but I can tell you this is one of the biggest shifts in U.S. foreign policy in generations. Security guarantees are negotiable. Trade agreements are negotiable. Preferred access to the American market is totally negotiable. For 70 years, Washington has been relying on these alliances, believing in these alliances, thinking they were more valuable in and of themselves than anything else. And Donald Trump doesn't. He's reviewing each and every one of these because he's looking at them like a business relationship. You got a CEO, right? As your chief executive right now, you get a businessman in the seat. We don't have a politician like Barack Obama or Joe Biden, if you can even call him that. No. This is a businessman. So if America is carrying the costs while someone else enjoys the benefits, he wants the deal rewritten. And he's not just renegotiating a trade deal. He's renegotiating the entire sort of idea of what it means to be an American ally. And today that starts with Canada and Mexico. Ladies and gentlemen, the Trump administration has declined to renew that agreement with Canada and Mexico in its current form. Take a look at what we saw the trade office put out here today. They said, and I'm going to make the print a little bit bigger so I can see it a little bit better with you. This is from Jameson Greer. He's the ambassador on trade. And he said, look, the agreement that was expiring, well, we're not renewing it. We're not renewing the USMCA in its current form. As a result, the USMCA is not renewed. The U.S. will continue to engage with Mexico and Canada to address the agreement's shortcomings and our trade deficits with these countries. However, the agreement remains in force pending resolution of these issues or until the agreement's termination. As previously announced, the United States will meet with Mexico the week of July 20th, blah, 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 for more negotiations. But in other words, now everything's suddenly on the table. They're going to have to renegotiate. So that means they're basically in another stage of terror. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Trish Regan. Make sure you subscribe. Let's go to Jameson Greer right here, our trade rep, who explained it, outlined why we are no longer yielding to Canada and Mexico.
Folks on the far left, Rosa DeLauro from Connecticut, who said, we're glad the president did not renew the trade deal. We think there are issues in Mexico related to labor and all kinds of standards they don't follow that Americans do, right? And then we have folks on the right, Jason Smith at Ways and Means and Adrian Smith, who represents farmers. They're saying we need to improve it. We're not getting the dairy access we need in Canada. So when it comes to Congress, I've been meeting with them, and they approve of the need to negotiate to improve the trade agreement. The president's already taken substantial action to reduce offshoring to Mexico and increase auto production in America. So we're already seeing big changes in the relationship. Nothing changes, right? When we say we don't renew it, nothing changes today. It's not like it's a cliff. Trade continues. It just continues on better terms for America.
In other words, we're going to have a whole new game here. I mean, a whole new game. I can tell you, again, this is one of the biggest foreign policy shifts I think that we have really ever seen. I mean, you think about how it was always sort of the status quo. Well, now everything's negotiable. Trade agreements are negotiable. Preferred access, right, to the American market is totally negotiable. All of this stuff is looked at within the prism of how is it going to work for us? How is it going to be better for us? So he's not just, looking at a trade deal. He's looking at the entire idea of what it means to be America's friend, right? America's ally. And if you're America's ally, then guess what? You better act like one. And that doesn't mean you can go and charge us tariffs, which was the concern with Canada and Mexico, and think that's okay. Because we're not charging you tariffs. So it's going to work like a two-way street. I mean, this is heady stuff, right? The elites are like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? Well, he's not signing on to this. It would have renewed it for another 16 years. And so now it changes. And basically every year it's coming up for renewal. Every single year. It's $2 trillion in annual trade and investment across North America that we're talking about here. The supply chains, the autos, the agriculture, energy, manufacturing, labor. I mean, you've got issues like China and all those EVs that they're trying to send into Canada. That's a big issue. You get the fentanyl coming up from, I was going to say Mexico, but some of it's coming down from Canada. So he's like, okay, we got to fix that stuff. I want some leverage here. I mean, that's the word of the day, okay? Remember that. Leverage. Trump is using leverage. He is saying to Canada and Mexico, the American market is not an entitlement, it's a privilege. And if you want that privilege, then guess what? You need to actually work with us. I mean, think about the history here. I mean, NAFTA came about. Remember Clinton? He thought that this was going to be terrific. NAFTA was signed basically back in the 1990s, went into effect in 94. And guess what happened? A lot of people lost jobs. It wasn't supposed to be that way. You were going to have open borders, and that meant all these goods going back and forth. You were going to have all this efficiency. You were going to have more growth. You were going to have more trade. And sure, you did get more trade, but simultaneously, factories closed. Manufacturing towns were gutted, entire communities in places like Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. I think about Western New York, upstate New York. My husband's from the Buffalo area, and that's a small town outside Buffalo that was totally decimated as a result of NAFTA. And all those jobs went poof. Well, the political class, Clinton was like, don't worry. This is what you call progress. And the economists, I get it, market people were like, hey, don't worry. This is comparative advantage. It's all going to work out well. And everybody's like, you're going to be able to retrain. Well, I'll tell you, a lot of companies grew their margins, sure, but what happened to America? Americans lost their jobs. And what were people really retraining for? Just a part-time job, a warehouse job, replacing a factory job that used to support a family? I mean, that didn't really work. So there's this political wound, an open wound, if you would, that Donald Trump really identified before anyone else in modern Republican politics and Democrat politics as well was willing to say any of this out loud. And so as such, you know, he did something really different, and he called NAFTA a disaster, and he said America had been taken advantage of, and he said we needed better leaders. We needed better leaders protecting our people. They're all protecting the institutions, but they're not protecting the people. And I'll tell you, he was right. So here we are looking at a very different world today. And he's going to continue using tariffs and using pressure and threats and negotiation to replace all of these institutions that are no longer working for America. I mean, and I'd go so far as to say when you heard him speaking there, he's actually talking about his own deal, right? I mean, he made the deal. And now he's willing to abandon his deal. Why? Because the deal's still not good enough. He's still willing. If he has a chance to negotiate it again, he will. And that is the difference between Donald Trump and the old Washington establishment. The old establishment treats these agreements and deals like they're some kind of monument, right? A statue. And he's like, no, it's a contract and the contract's up. Okay, so the contract, it's time to get renegotiated. I mean, remember, you heard from Jameson Greer who said, we're not agreeing to renew the USMCA in its current form. They want to go back. They want to renegotiate it again. And they want to resolve, the president wants to resolve any extra little deficiencies he finds out there and any concerns he has about trade deficits in there. And so he's going back to the starting point. I mean, it's a whole new ballgame. That's how he sees it. And so this is a big deal, okay? It's a big deal because he's so different, and I'm excited by that, right? Like he's willing to take these chances because you got a shot at a big prize. It reminds me of what he said to Joe Kernan at CNBC a little bit earlier today. I want to go to this. I mean, even as it relates to the Federal Reserve, because he's sort of annoyed with what everybody's been saying about the Fed and how, you know, they have to raise interest rates. It's really important to bring up interest rates because you can't have the economy growing too fast. And he's like, heck, why not? Why can't it grow too fast? I mean, why would you ever be satisfied? It's kind of like what he's saying here. Why would you be satisfied with an agreement? Granted, I made the agreement at the time. I thought it was the greatest agreement in the world. But if I see some extra I's to dot and T's to cross, why not take that opportunity? Here he is on CNBC earlier today talking about why he wants to see big growth. I mean, really big growth out of the United States of America.
We're not allowed to go up. If we go up, they want to kill it. There's no reason we should stop at 4%. We should be at 12% and 13% GDP. And I hate what happens where in the old days that's how we built the country. Now you announce positive things and they want to bring it down by raising interest rates.
So he's never satisfied, right? And I think there's something unique and special about that. He's not, even if it's his own deal, right? He's not going to put it up on a pedestal and say, this is the be all end all. He's still saying, they didn't think I was going to be back in office. Guess what? I'm back. And I'm willing to make your life a living HELL until you can actually fix this even better than we did it last time. I mean, this is why it's such a big deal, okay? This is why it's not just a normal trade story. U.S. policy has historically been built around this idea of economic integration being a good thing, that, the more that we trade with people, the more stable the world becomes. And that was the theory behind NAFTA. And if you think about it, it was actually the theory about the WTO and China entering the WTO. And it was the theory of NATO, right, in the post-Cold War global order. But Trump is very different. He doesn't really care that, okay, you got these alliances and these institutions and they're going to protect everyone. No. Trump's view is that trade is not automatically good. Trade is only good if it benefits America. In other words, if it empties out American factories, then it's not good. If it's enriching foreign producers, but American workers are losing some leverage, then it's not good. And if it allows China to route products through other countries and still reach our market, which is what he's worried about with China sending stuff to Mexico and sending stuff to Canada, then it's definitely not good. So if it turns into the U.S. being the buyer of last resort while everyone else is out there protecting their industries, that's not good. So this is what you call a real philosophical break. This is America first applied to North America. And Canada and Mexico, people will say, oh, he's treating them like they're our enemies. No, he's not. He's treating them like business partners, right? That you're doing a deal with. He's making it clear that, they're not going to be exempt just because they happen to be in the northern hemisphere here with us, in North America hemisphere. He's not exempting them. He's just basically using real world economics, right, that would govern a business to govern a country. His attitude is, hey, they're allies, but these allies can still be taking advantage of you. An ally can still have unfair trade barriers and fail to secure its side of the border. It can still benefit from access to the U.S. market while still refusing to make these concessions that America wants and needs. And that's why he's doing this. Mexico, think about Mexico, right? Their role is really important. We need Mexico to focus on the border. I mean, we do a lot of it ourselves, of course, but we want them to focus on the border. We want them to focus on fentanyl. We want to stop the migration. We want to stop all the goods coming up and the cheap stuff and the fake stuff from China. I mean, that's got to stop. But whether Mexico is willing to do that or not, I would argue they haven't. They haven't been willing at all. Not at all. I mean, they were like sending people to the border with Biden, right? Go to the US of A. Don't be our problem anymore. Well, if Mexico wants to become a real, true partner in North American manufacturing, then guess what? They're going to have to play by the rules, our rules, and that means you can't be a backdoor for foreign products that are trying to seep into the American market. You're going to have to be a good ally. All right? Like, that's how it works, okay? There's a new sheriff in town, as they say. And I would say this, Mexico will do what we need them to do, because I think Mexico at this point, even Claudia Sheinbaum, she understands the leverage we have. If you want tariff-free access to the United States, and Mexico does, then you need to play by our rules, because the access is actually enormously valuable, right? Enormously valuable. It's very important. So if we give them something, they have to give us something in return. We cannot have any loopholes. We cannot let China seep in through the loopholes. We need the cooperation at the border. We cannot be obligated to keep absorbing the costs while they capture the benefits. And the same is true for Canada, okay? Canada is a little bit different, but the same principle is at work, because they've benefited from that close economic integration with the U.S. I mean, you think about energy, autos, agriculture, lumber, dairy, steel, I could go on and on, aluminum, right? It's all deeply connected here. But Donald Trump has been frustrated, understandably, with the Canadian trade policies, and he has been for years, especially on things like lumber and tariffs and dairy. And now Canada is actually facing the same exact message, that friendship does not mean automatic access on, unchallenged terms. I mean, what kind of world is that? I mean, this is not George W. Bush Republicanism. This is not Chamber of Commerce Republicanism. This is not the old free trade cachet, that everybody loved, where it was considered so virtuous, right? Let's go with this, okay? This is what you call transactional nationalism. Donald Trump would rather be accused of disrupting the system than be praised for managing the decline of the system, okay? So he's just turning this on its head. And again, this is why America brought in a businessman. We tried before, right? Like, we tried to get Ross Perot in there at one time. It was too hard in the two-party system. But then Donald Trump emerged, running as a Republican, and America said, yes, this is what we want. Now, the critics are saying, okay, this creates all kinds of uncertainty, and you don't want uncertainty. businesses hate uncertainty, and I get it. They do. I mean, everyone hates uncertainty, including investors, including farmers, maybe everybody except for Donald Trump, right? Hates uncertainty. It's never good. But actually, I think it might be a question of who has the most tolerance for the uncertainty. Because at this point, as we think about all of these Canadian companies and all of these Mexican companies getting so challenged on all of this, I think that uncertainty is actually our leverage. Because if you don't have uncertainty, you have no leverage. If Canada and Mexico believe that the U.S. is always going to renew the deal, then why would they do anything? If we're just going to sit there and preserve the status quo and protect the whatever framework they worked up, why would they ever give anything up? I mean, they wouldn't, right? They wouldn't. So Trump is in there injecting this uncertainty into the picture, which puts the entire deal in doubt and says, okay, well, maybe we don't need these deals. In fact, maybe we don't need a deal with Mexico and Canada. Maybe we do a little deal with Mexico. Maybe we do a little deal with Canada. Maybe we still make them contingent, where they get to renew every couple of years or every year in this case. Or maybe we walk. Or better yet, impose tariffs. We want to have some tougher rules here because we got something pretty damn great, right? We're the United States of America. We are the world's largest economy, the most important economy. So if you want to get access to us, then we need good terms. I mean, this is basically the art of the deal applied to foreign policy. And I'll tell you, whether you love it or you hate it, it is darn consistent. Darn consistent. He believes America has been too predictable and too generous and too afraid of its own power. And he's saying, forget about it, no more. You know what? This Canada-Mexico story is such a perfect example of that. Changing the rules of alliance management, even when they're his rules. Okay, so he's telling allies, you're not getting special treatment. End of story. And this is important for NATO to think about right now, right? Because NATO has been on very, very thin ice. Donald Trump sending this out today on NATO, guys. The United States spends more money on NATO, he writes, on Truth Social. By far, more money on NATO than any other country to protect them without getting any benefit from doing so. And then he goes off to list all the numbers, $990 billion the U.S. is spending versus the U.K. at $90 billion, France at $66 billion, Italy $48.8 billion, Poland $44 billion. Others, including Germany, are much lower. And he's using numbers from 2014 through 25, and he said, this is ridiculous. Well, this is key timing, because guess what's coming up? Turkey. And in Turkey, they're going to be talking about whether or not they are going to meet our requirements for 5% of GDP. So what he did to Canada and Mexico economically, he's doing to NATO militarily. NATO, if you want to leverage access to the U.S. security umbrella, you're going to have to do what we've asked of you. And we're getting pretty tired of the fact that for decades, NATO has been such a centerpiece of American foreign policy, and yet you guys haven't been contributing. Just to walk you back, and you know this, 1949, NATO gets created. You're coming out of World War II, right? And it was effectively a way to combat the rise of communism. It started as a defense alliance with far few countries than it has now, right? It was a whole lot smaller. And the idea is, because of Article 5, if one country is attacked, then that becomes an attack on all countries. And that commitment is what really helped deter the Soviet Union. It helped keep Western Europe together. It was part of the whole definition of, if you would, of the Cold War. But when the Cold War ended, NATO didn't. NATO stuck around, and not only did NATO stick around, it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So you're looking at a really large NATO today compared to where it was. It expanded, it took on new missions, it moved east, and the United States remained what? Oh, the indispensable power behind all of it, with our American troops, our American intelligence, our American nuclear deterrence, our American airlift, American money, right? And for years, what did every president say? Europe's not spending enough. This is not just Trump, okay? Just to be really clear, Barack Obama was out there complaining about free riders. George W. Bush pushed allies to spend more. You had defense secretaries from both parties warning that Europe had to do something, had to pay more because America could not carry that burden forever. But who was the first president to say the quiet part out loud in a way that actually scared them? Donald Trump, okay? And even Democrats have admitted this. The senator from Michigan, I've played you the sound before, Alyssa, the one that was involved with the whole CIA thing, and then she tried to, after tell everybody in the military that they should basically pivot on Trump, it was, and they're saying it's sedition, et cetera. Well, anyway, she is quoted as saying, I can't believe this. Like, it's amazing. Back when I was at the Pentagon or wherever she was, she said, I would beg them, please, 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 can you pay more? And they'd always say, yeah, no. And now Donald Trump got it done. So he's effectively saying here, guys, if you want this protection, then you need to fork over the cash. After all, if you're not paying, why should we protect you? And Europeans can't handle this, right? Because every other president, they'd complain, right? But they never actually threatened to break up NATO. Trump complains, and he threatens, and he's willing to walk. And that is the difference. So once again, you're back to leverage, okay? This guy knows how to use leverage. I mean, it's amazing. They were supposed to pay 2% of GDP. Did they? No. No. Now they're supposed to pay 5%. Are they going to? Well, if they're not going to, you heard what Pete said the other day. We ran the sound. Pete said, you know what? We're going to just reduce everything that we are giving you. If you're not paying your 5%, then we're going to look at our numbers and we're going to reduce what we're paying. So there's some serious math going on at this upcoming meeting. And they're going to have to keep moving that defense spending commitment up higher and higher, that 5% framework. It's a big deal. And they don't know how they're going to do it. And they're complaining. And for some reason, Spain gets an excuse. Well, Spain, I'm sorry. Spain, the Pentagon's looking at throwing you out. I think the latest and greatest move is we're just going to reduce all the money we could possibly be giving to Spain since they're not even paying their 2%. So you understand, like, the idea here is that you don't sit there and ask nicely forever. You make the other side understand that that free ride that they've been getting, it could end. And of course, you got to be willing to end it. And I'm pretty darn certain he is. Considering, everything that's going on right now in this moment in time, ahead of the Turkey meeting, the U.S., we know, is pressing those allies to spend more. They got to do it. Pete Hegseth told them all in Brussels. We've heard Marco Rubio do it. We've heard the president do it repeatedly. We've heard the ambassador to NATO do it. I mean, everybody's telling them the model has changed. The old model, everybody was wrapped up in the same moral language of unity and alliance and solidarity and shared values. And in Trump's model, he's like, yeah, we may have all that, but if you're not paying, it's over. All right? In other words, you've got to pay your fair share. Just because you're an ally really doesn't mean anything. I mean, what are we getting out of the deal? You're getting everything. We're getting nothing. And so that has got to change. I think that France is really worried about this. France is like, oh my gosh. France is saying, I think he's serious. And I think he might actually cut us off. I mean, why else are they taking their gold, right? We've been talking about this. I find this so fascinating. Financial Times out with a really interesting report about how central banks are repatriating their gold. And specifically, one of the countries that they mention is France. And France is taking out everything. They had a lot at the New York Fed. They had a lot in London. And they've liquidated everything, and they've bought up that amount back home. They've effectively repatriated everything, right? And now they have it at home. Well, why would they do that? I guess they're fearful that we might put a little tax on them, so to speak, right? You guys aren't paying your fair share in NATO? Well, we got your gold. And look, we've done it before, right? Like, what do you think happened with the sanctions in Russia? And Donald Trump loves these financial tools. So that may be what they're worried about. Of course, France, I was thinking about what they did in the 70s and how we effectively had to go off of the gold standard, right, in the 70s with Richard Nixon because France threatened to take all of its gold back then. I mean, it was very interesting. And then we no longer pegged the dollar to gold as a result of that. And I was talking with Dr. Kirk Elliott. The thank you to KEPM. They're wonderful, wonderful sponsors of the show, and they have been so great to us. And I sat down with him recently, and we did an interview, but this little part was not on the show, and this was something we were talking about after. And the camera happened to be rolling. So I said, hey, this is really interesting what you're saying about France. In light of them now taking all their gold back, explain to me what went down in the 70s. So here's just a quick soundbite from Dr. Kirk, and he's explaining what went down and what that means for today. Here we go. What happened in the 70s with Nixon?
So Nixon closed the gold window because we have to take a quick little step back, right? In the 30s,
I'm here.
In the 30s, gold was confiscated. And people say, well, it was confiscated. Why? But why was it confiscated? So after World War I, America was bankrupt. It was a very expensive war, of course, right? So back then the dollar was backed by gold. You could have 1 ounce of gold or a $20 bill. They were the same. So the president at the time said, hey, we're issuing these war bonds. America, you need to bail out America, please. And nobody wanted the stinking war bonds because America was basically bankrupt. And they said, we're keeping our money that's backed by gold. We're not going to. So he said, all right, I'm going to force you to buy these war bonds. We're going to confiscate your gold, right? Again, weaponization of people's assets against them, right? So it was illegal basically for people to own gold, but it wasn't illegal for governments to trade back and forth with each other with it. They could still do it for international settlement until the 70s, when France basically wanted it back. Again, France.
France. What is it with France?
What is it with France? And Nixon said, we're not going to pay back you in gold like you want. We're just going to give you our dollars. And France said, what? And so what did Nixon do? He just closed the gold window. So was he doing it to destroy a market? No, he was doing it to actually keep gold, right? And not have to use it as international settlement. He just wanted to use paper dollars. Well, that caused the inflation since the 70s. The dollar's eroded like over 90% since then. It's bonkers what happened. But again, using tangible assets or any country's assets as a weapon against them is a very strong political tool.
Amazing. Oops, I'm still here. Yeah. Amazing. Indeed amazing. So, by the way, if you're interested in purchasing gold, it's one of those diversification tools. I love it. You can help support the show and help Dr. Kirk. Well, I mean, he's going to help you over there at trishlovesgoldandsilver.com. So go check that out when you can. There's something really weird going on. Have you guys noticed? I mean, we've got like a very big birthday, right? Coming up. I'm going to be going to some fireworks in just a little bit tonight. So I'm looking to get my party started a little bit early. But it's a big moment in time. And I've been complaining that I'm not seeing enough flags. I'm not seeing enough patriotism. In fact, this latest and greatest stunt out of places like Buffalo, Boston, and Columbus, Ohio really has me troubled, because apparently they're more interested in celebrating the Somali Independence Day than they are in America's Independence Day. Look at this.
Well, we've been tracking a number of Democrat-led cities that have appeared to put America's 250th birthday on the back burner. Buffalo held a celebration for Somali Independence Day, flying the country's flag at City Hall. That country's flag. And just a day after canceling its 4th of July fireworks show. The city said it ran into logistical issues. In Boston, Democrat Mayor Michelle Wu also celebrated Somalia weeks after she proposed cutting nearly $1 million from veteran services. That is so unpatriotic.
Yeah.
Wu eventually restored.
So what's that about? Why is it right now that we are seeing such a devotion suddenly to Somalia? I guess it has a little something to do with Donald Trump and just a little something to do perhaps with, Ilhan Omar, and perhaps a little something to do with TDS. Yeah, you know, that TDS can be quite debilitating, if you would. TDS is really, really troubling because the TDS is apparently capturing so many Americans that they now want to focus on Somalia and their Independence Day as opposed to our 250th birthday. I mean, that's just a little bit weird. Let me go to Minneapolis, where the mayor, Jacob Frey, you remember him? Down on his knees, begging for forgiveness because he was born white. Anyway, well, you got a little bit more of that on display, carrying the Somalian flag, the whole bit. Take a peek.
Through the most difficult of times and through Operation Metro Surge, we all saw that they tried to come for some of us. And when that happens, we say that you're coming for all of us. In Minneapolis, we love our neighbors. In Minneapolis, we do not see you as immigrants. We see you as our family. You're our brothers. You are our sisters. You have done so much for this incredible city, and for that.
Okay, and he goes on and on and on, and you know it's Mayor Frey. Okay, so and he's got Minneapolis, and he's not going to get elected without them. You know, I don't know if he's coming through like Ilhan did allegedly with feeding our future, but he's got a political crowd that he is beholden to there, and that's obviously what was going on. We saw Michelle Wu out in Boston doing a similar type thing, and you know, I just got to say, I don't think that they care as much about our country as they do all of the migrants pouring in from everywhere else. I mean, that was evident to me even with Tim Walz when he changed the darn flag. Remember this one, memory lane here?
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, he went to get out. I mean, that was a nice flag, perfectly fine flag. Don't forget Somalia's flag. And now they got to have a little star just like Somalia did. And he says it's so much better now. Wow, more inclusive.
There, that's better.
Okay, buddy boy. So, you know, there's a theme here, if you would. And some people are saying, you know, maybe some stuff needs to change. Maybe we need to have fewer people coming here that don't have our interests at heart. Maybe if we get rid of things like birth tourism and we seal our borders shut, we can have more control over who's coming in, because we want people that believe in America, right? We want people that love this country. We want people, I see Buddy Sanders is willing to trade Minnesota for Alberta, Canada. That's funny. I think that would be just fine. You know, I love Alberta, Canada too. And they've got all that very resource rich oil up there. A lot of good reasons to make that trade, but they're coming here and they don't have the interests of our country at heart. And so Ron DeSantis has been quite outspoken about this. Peter Schweitzer, again, well, obviously the president, but let me go to Peter because he's making the point that this is actually a security threat. That there are lots of women that come here from China, give birth, and then go back to China with their baby, and now their kid has 2 passports. And the Chinese government is A-okay with it all. Oh, I wonder why. Let's go to Peter.
According to the Chinese government itself, they believe that every year on average, since 2013, roughly 100,000 Chinese babies have been born in the United States. That is a government estimate from China. Yes, research firms in China put that number sometimes even higher. The problem is our federal government doesn't know. We don't track this. They don't put on a birth certificate the nationality of the parents. So that's the inherent problem. We don't know the scope of it, but China says it's massive. And that means since 2013, Laura, we're looking at potentially more than 1 million quote-unquote U.S. citizens that are being raised in China. They're citizens only because their mothers came here to give birth.
Yikes. So, again, you know, this may come back for the Supreme Court. I know we didn't get the ruling we wanted on that one, and I think there's a fair shot that it will come back at some point. But in the interim, what can you do? Right? And this is an administration that, you know, they're realists as much as I am, and they're figuring out what they can do. One of the first things they can do, and they intend to do, is ban that birth tourism, because that can't be going on. You lock your borders down and you ban the birth tourism.
Are we banning foreign pregnant women?
Well, what I'm saying, Jesse, is that you have to now think very carefully about who you let into your country, even on a temporary basis, because the possibility, as you said, for birth tourism, right? The idea that people come here just to have babies on American soil, and that baby gets to be a citizen for life. So you have mothers that come in fully pregnant, have a baby, go home, and again, that baby gets Medicaid, and that baby gets welfare, and that baby gets cash assistance, and can send, leave the baby with, a cousin, a relative, whatever, and then just send welfare checks back home. You can support a whole family in the third world. So yes, you can't have the kinds of immigration programs other countries have when you can just have a baby here, and now that child is an American citizen. So there's a lot of things we're going to have to take a hard look at, Jesse.
Yeah, they can even get Trump accounts.
We don't want to let them have those. Well, CNN is like really mad. Really mad at all this talk about ending birth tourism. And what are we going to do? We're going to check pregnant women. I mean, maybe there's a test when you get to you might want to stay thin, because if there's anything going on and you give the border agent a chance to, give you a little test, that could get awkward. I get it. But come on, you cannot allow for this. You've got to be firm. No other country in the world does this. And you got to think about why are people coming here? And why do we want them here? Why do you have immigration policy? Why did we ever have it? You know why we had it? Because we wanted people. We wanted bodies. We wanted workers. We needed them. Do we need workers now? Well, maybe. So then go figure out what industries you need them in and then go get them, right? You got a shortage of nurses. They got a lot of them in the Philippines. Bingo. Okay, we're going to recruit nurses from the Philippines. I mean, if you can't fill them here, then you can start expanding. But you've also got to think about, how are these people contributing to society? Are they going to be actual contributors, or are they going to be a drain? I mean, these are fair questions. And by the way, they used to ask them in the old days. I don't know what happened. Well, wokeism happened. Foreign interference happened. The Democrats became communists. That is what happened. CNN, they're melting down last night, having a full-on meltdown. Oh my gosh, they can't believe this. How could we end birth tourism?
Pregnant women and women who could be pregnant. I also just find it interesting that Andy Ogles, who is a member of Congress, doesn't know that it is already not legal to come here with the express purpose of giving birth to a child so that they can gain citizenship. That's a violation of our existing immigration laws. But this idea that now women are the targets of immigration because they wanted to change birthright citizenship via executive order, that seems like, I don't know, bad politics, bad optics, maybe both.
I mean, we already know that foreign adversaries are exploiting this. There's been 1.5 Chinese CCP babies who've been born on U.S. 1.5 million people who've come via
how many
birth
of them
tourism to have children in the U.S. over the last few decades.
I've never seen the number be that high. I don't know if you're
The New York Post has reported on it.
I'm looking at Cat Crazy Sam. We absolutely cannot have this. Cat Crazy Sam writes, this is sanctioned by the Supreme Court, foreign governments take over the U.S. of A. I mean, it really is pretty wild, right? Because we haven't done a ton on this, and I don't like to. Yes, I can't believe that they didn't take into consideration the time and place of the 14th Amendment and who this actually applied to. I think it'll come back. I think Don Baca, we're on a little too late for Don today, but because he's 6 hours ahead of us, I believe, overseas. And Don has made the point over and over again in this chat, actually, that it will come back. And because it was such a close decision, and Amy Coney Barrett, all right, she's not dependable, shall we say. He never wanted her. Don't forget, he never really wanted Amy. Somehow he wound up with her. Anyway, she's not so dependable, but I think it may, in fact, in time come back. So we'll see. But I find it fascinating because CNN's having a total meltdown about this now. But if we go back a few years, go back to 2011, okay, guys? I want to show you just a glimpse of a report from 2011. CNN was one of the first to report on the danger of these birth tourists, as they're known.
It's sold as the ultimate U.S. tour package for wealthy pregnant women around the globe. It's called maternity tourism, and it's big business.
Right now, the advertised rate from $15,000 US to $50,000.
That's air, hotel, medical care, and the guarantee of an American-born baby. In Manhattan, a luxury hotel caters to wealthy Turkish women. In Tucson, rich Mexican women fly in on private jets. And in Los Angeles, affluent Chinese mothers are boarded in stately townhomes. They give birth, then recover till they're able to return home. In these townhouses, inspectors had been called out to investigate on 3 separate occasions. They found the townhouses had been converted into a multi-unit facility, and the kitchen was turned into a nursery for newborns. While it was shut down for multiple city code violations, there's nothing illegal about coming to the U.S. to have a baby.
So this is a hot topic for the show.
Kat Chow is the host of a Chinese radio show. She says L.A. is a hub.
It's like insurance, isn't it? For your future. There you go, insurance. Well, I think parents, they really want to do everything for the kids.
Attorney Daniel Deng says while maternity tourism is controversial, it's a fast track to citizenship for the privileged.
They could enjoy the retirement benefit and also the best medical care that the government can offer.
I went to meet one of the customers.
When is your baby due?
She declined to appear on camera, but told me she's from Shanghai and here on a tourist visa.
Part of the immigration debate is that you should do it the right way and you need to wait in line. These people who have money aren't waiting in line, are they? No, they are not waiting in line. However, they did not violate any law. Okay, and again, if you really want to stop it, if U.S. government really want to stop this, you're going to make the law, you're going to change the law.
Chow says until that happens.
Okay, but the law hasn't changed, and the law is not yet changing. So I think the next course of action is to just say firmly, you know what? In the last trimester, you're not coming here. I mean, I hate to be so indelicate about it, but you just... It can't be allowed. And if you do come here and you have the kid, you really just shouldn't be able to get citizenship. I mean, it actually is a real security concern as far as I am concerned. I think most of us feel that way, especially in a day and age when we're worried about all the espionage we have to worry about. But I'll tell you this, Homan is cracking down. The DOJ is cracking down. Mark Mullen alongside Homan, they're all cracking down. Let's listen to this.
Exactly right. I mean, the first thing I saw the decision, which I don't agree with, is okay, now we step up enforcement. We step up more enforcement. Even though we're doing record amounts of enforcement now, we need to do more. And not only that, we need to, really buckle down on birth tourism. We have many investigations on birth tourism, but we need to quadruple down on that. And look, I agree with Judge Alito. First of all, I've been doing this since 1984. That's when I started in Border Patrol. This birthright citizenship has always been a major driver for illegal migration. During the Biden administration, the Yuma Hospital, the El Paso Hospital, 100% maternity beds were illegal aliens. That's not a coincidence. That's not by accident. But it's always been a driver for illegal migration. But more importantly, it's a national security issue because the birth tours investigation I'm aware of, you got nationals from China and Russia coming here by the thousands, having a baby and leaving. Now, so we have U.S. citizens by the thousands and this continued by the millions living in countries that I think are adversaries to us that can come here and have an impact on how this country is run. So it's a national security issue, a huge proportion that we need to address. And I hope Congress does it.
At the broadest and most shallow level, I bring up the World Cup, Tom, but the point really is, do you have a citizen?
So Congress, balls back in your court. Maybe that's where it goes from here. In the interim, watch out for the DOJ. They mean business.
From a Department of Justice standpoint, it's obviously focusing our prosecutors and our law enforcement partners on birthing tourism, and it's a booming industry, and it will continue. It will continue given the Supreme Court's decision yesterday. There's other things that DHS can do and the federal government can do in the visa process and the application process to try to minimize or limit the opportunity of folks coming here to not to visit and not to do what they're saying they're doing on their tourist visa, but just to have a baby that can then be a U.S. citizen. So from our standpoint, it's focusing on what is a problem. So everybody should agree that it's a violation of our laws if your intent in coming here, if you're pregnant, is to have a child to become a United States citizen because of our now laws. And so what we have to do as the Department of Justice is make sure our agents, our HSI agents that we work with, and the FBI,
that they apprehend them. So actually, here's something kind of interesting. If we figure out that you did that deliberately, maybe you just go to jail. Maybe that's the threat. I mean, kind of like you saw how people stopped flooding the borders because they realized as soon as they got here, they were going to be met by a special kind of hell with the Trump administration. So maybe that is indicative of the need of some kind of deterrent. I'm thinking out loud here. Welcome to Suggestions as I look at your comments here in real time. But I'll tell you one thing, it could be good you got to get rid of the bad people. I mean, maybe if you stop the birth tourism, you could possibly start getting rid of some of the bad people that are coming here from all over the place. Uganda, for example, Mamdani, right? And I kind of wonder who's in his back pocket, who's bankrolling him. China, that's my suspicion. Anyway, if we could get rid of the bad people, then that might be a win-win for us. Here's Governor Ron DeSantis out of Florida, who's all for getting rid of the bad people.
Really important. You know, the thing about, I look around the country and, you know, we've had people, and you see it in some of these election results, you know, some of the people that have been brought in over the last 20, 30 years, they don't like the country. You know, they want to import where they came from, which, you know, some of these countries are really messed up, and ultimately expect us to change to go in that direction. And I just think that, first of all, that's not the way I would want to live. But second of all, how ridiculous. I mean, imagine like if some of us like showed up in France and we just showed us, oh yeah, you got to start doing, like they would laugh at you, right? I mean, like that's just not the way it is. So this birthright is an issue in terms of people can come. You kind of have, if you have kids, and it's hard for them to remove you at that point, and that's definitely been gained. There's no question. But it's a larger issue about not just illegal immigration, but who is legally being let into the country, and are these folks people that are rejecting, you know, kind of the American way of life? And I think, unfortunately, we've seen that in larger numbers over the years. In any event, we will look at that. Indeed, right? He made the point that I've made repeatedly. Like, can you imagine? I'm going to go on a limb and say, forget France. Let's go to like someplace like Mexico even. I mean, you can't go anywhere. You can't go to the UK, you can't go to Switzerland, you can't go to France or Italy or Spain, or probably, I'm trying to come up with, you probably can't even go to Afghanistan, okay? Like, you can't go anywhere. Like, you can't go to the worst place on earth and expect that you are going to get citizenship just because you were born there. And, you know, we just live in a different day and age, and we got to get the courts to catch up with that understanding. But CNN, they're livid about this. They don't want to end this. This is the media, typical media, you know, elites. In the meantime, you get the socialists that are taking over and going on and on about how we got to get rid of ICE and get rid of the police. And, you know, they want lawlessness.
Abolishing ICE is just one step, right? Democrats have been in power multiple times over the last few decades and did nothing to address the immigration reform that we actually need.
Increased expenditures, increased spending.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think there has to be an immediate pathway for every single undocumented immigrant that's here in this.
Everybody gets to come. Everybody gets citizenship. This is their panacea. This is their delusional world that they live in. That woman just won. So she's going to be going to Congress as a Democrat. She's a total commie. She's proud of her communist roots and is going to perpetuate that. I mean, so this is the danger we now have, because you've got a number of these people, the 3 in New York that Mamdani supported, and I really question their motives. The administration, I'm going to play a little bit of this. I played it for you guys yesterday. I absolutely love it, okay, because I joke about McCarthyism all the time, and I mean, hey, where's McCarthy when you need him? I'm kidding. But anyway, they got the joke too, I guess, because they put this one out. How to Spot a Communist, prepared by, this isn't the White House, forgive me, it's the RNC, 2026.
Communist, physical appearance counts for nothing. If he openly declares himself to be a communist, We take his word for it.
I am a democratic socialist.
You call yourself a democratic socialist?
I'm a democratic socialist. Mamdani is a self-described socialist.
I am a democratic socialist.
Claire Valdez, this is a candidate, again, aligned with the Democratic Socialists of America.
I'm a proud democratic socialist.
I identify as a democratic socialist, but I'm running as a Democrat.
We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. We will prove that
the warmth of collectivism. We will replace the fragility, what was it? With the warmth. Anyway, the warmth of collectivism. That's what really stuck out at me, okay? That's what stuck out at me, especially because it's so hot, right, in the New York area. And what did the warmth of collectivism deliver for you? A mandatory requirement. Oh, not quite mandatory, just a suggestion at this point because he hasn't gone full commie yet. To set your AC to 78 degrees. Woo! Turn off lights, electronics that you're not using, and unplug what you can. Zohran Memdani writes, because New York, it's hot out there and the power grid is working overtime to keep us cool. Our city is doing its part too, maintaining its 78-degree rule in our buildings. Ooh! Poor city employees. You know, as if things weren't bad enough. Dimming, turning off our lights during peak electricity demand, asking private partners to do the same, and powering down non-essential equipment. All right, so that warmth of collectivism, it's kind of getting to people. Just like it's getting to them in France. I mean, you got thousands of people dying in France, and they still don't want air conditioning. They don't want air conditioning. Why? Because they are fearful that the widespread adoption of energy-hungry technology would undermine their ambition to lead the world against climate change. Yep. So, you know, Mamdani's singing the same old tune, and it's coming out in real time. What do we tell you? I mean, really and truly. It's like these guys in New York, they want to be France. Good luck with that. You know, I actually don't think that as many people as you think, Mamdani, I mean, granted, they did elect you. Some kind of miracle happened to get that to actually transpire. But I think a lot of normal people don't necessarily vote in those elections. Instead, you got Brooklyn hipsters. But I'll tell you, if the union comes out, Mamdani's not going back in. The New York union chief, one of the union heads, is just furious at the direction the Democrat Party has taken, and I don't blame him one iota. Let's go to this appearance on Fox today with one of my former colleagues, Sandra Smith, a lovely woman. In fact, she and I actually moderated. We're the first two women. How do you like that? PBS tried to get a bunch of credit for it, but we were the first two women to ever co-moderate a big national presidential debate. So Sandra and I did that back in, I guess that would have been for the 2016 election. Anyway, let me go to the union head who she's interviewing here. This is a very good and important clip, and it speaks to what I think a lot of people nationwide are thinking and feeling about the Democrat Party right now.
Here now is Bobby Bartels, New York Steamfitters Local 638 business manager. And Bobby, I've had a chance to chat with you during the commercial. And, you know, I hear your frustration and I hear it loud and clear. So share that with our audience. What are you seeing happening with the Democrat Party and the unions?
Well, the Democrat Party is going so far left, and they're supposed to be the working people's party. Right now, they're the immigrants, criminals, and everybody that doesn't want to work party. So we do not align with them. When we work hard for our jobs, we want our taxes to go for us or for American citizens, not for illegal immigrants. We don't align with no borders. We don't align with no police. We don't align with giving everybody, you know, whatever they're looking for. And, you know, recently I just heard Kristen Gillibrand and Hakeem Jeffries saying they have a large tent. They want to invite everybody into their tent. Well, why wouldn't they want to invite everybody into their tent? They opened up the borders to let everybody in for 4 years. My personal opinion and my members' personal opinions are they should fold that tent up, pack it back up, and get rid of them, because we've just let some Democrats know that we've backed for years. We're not backing them anymore.
Whoa. You guys just lost the unions. I mean, we saw it coming, right, with Kamala Harris and her candidacy. By the way, she's been calling up all the socialists. That's the latest and greatest, calling AOC, calling Mamdani, pleading with them to, I guess, support her for another round. I don't think she's going to have much luck with AOC because AOC wants to be president, of course, herself. Anyway, she's trying to court these extremists. But what did we see in the last election? All the unions, they were like, man, like this lady, she's bad news, bad news. They didn't like her. And now they're coming right out and they're saying, we're telling everybody, don't support the Democrats. You see, this is like all turning on its head. It's like parties, typical systems and parties don't matter anymore because Donald Trump has just taken everything from all of the Democrats. He's taken all the good stuff from the Democrats in that, they're trying to protect jobs and help strengthen American industry. He's taken all the good stuff from the Republicans, that we want lots of economic prosperity and low taxes and less regulation. He meshes all this stuff together into a mashup that's actually pretty fantastic, right? This is the America First policy. So I don't know what the Democrats have left. This is why they're creeping over to the socialist tent, all right? They got to go full on commie just to distinguish themselves as different these days. It's kind of funny to watch. Hey, just a shout out from my company, 76 Research. Go take a look at those portfolios if you haven't. Please invest for yourself, invest for your future, invest for your family. We don't handle any of your money. We just provide the research to help you select the companies you want to be investing in. So in case of these model portfolios, we've got 10 to 15 stocks in each one of them, and we tell you every step of the way what we're doing. We tend to buy. We don't like to sell a lot. I mean, I'm a big sort of believer in the long-term value opportunity, as is my colleague, who's an outstanding stock picker. That's Rob Horton. Anyway, go check that out when you can. We got a big weekend coming up, guys. I got some fireworks to go to tonight. I got to go put on my red, white, and blue. I'll be back here with all of you tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, as always. Such a great crowd here. And I know it's tough. It's a holiday week and everybody's heading out of town, but you were still here. And if you didn't catch it live, you can see the replay at the top of the channel as well as on Spotify. I'll see you back here live tomorrow.